was, I guess it was 35. It's going to be hard to talk about.
What was it like?
Pretty much the worst time of our lives. Still is today.
What is it?
Oh my God, we miss her so much. She was taken way too early. She did have the experience of meeting almost all her grandkids, which the grandkids meant the world to her. She was a very loving mother, an awesome grandmother, and the kids adored her. And only Claire wasn't born yet, so she really, she was such a part of their lives. She took so much joy in having them around her. And the kids all missed out. We missed out as parents ourselves, and being in our 30s. It's hard enough to, I mean, I can't imagine losing a parent as a child. It's hard enough when you're in your 30s. But the kids missed her too. And watching the deterioration of my father, he's missing his other half. And like I said before, together they were a great balanced couple, and he was very lost without her.
First, she had her stroke.
Yeah, at 55.
And how did that feel then?
Oh, it was horrible. I remember they were on vacation. That was a nightmare. They were on vacation, and they were on the beach with friends, and they were in Mexico. And like my parents didn't vacation much. When they did, it was always related to a medical convention of sorts, and they would go with a few of their other physician friends, and they maybe did it once a year. And they were on the beach, and apparently my mother started slurring, and I don't know if she wasn't able to walk or whatever, but getting that call was the nightmare. So they brought her. She ended up. And it was strange. My dad had said that before he had left, they were older in age, and I guess you think more about your mortality. And he had gotten a thing in the mail about having some sort of little addendum to your insurance policy, and he added this life flight thing, which is something he had never done before, and he added it, and she ended up needing the life flight off the beach and was brought to Texas, where she was in ICU until they could figure out what had happened to her. And she was there for, I believe, a good week, and then came home, and then had to go into rehab up at Glen Cove Hospital. She was there for at least a month. I don't think it was 3 months, either 1 month or 3 months. But she had to relearn a lot of her mobility skills, and that was tough. I mean, she was this 55-year-old woman that ran circles around everybody, doing holidays and doing for everybody else, that you didn't expect to see her fall. And the stroke really took her down. And then she lived a couple more years after that with a few more little strokes, and then she had a heart attack and died.
Well, that period when she came back up here, that must have been very hard on you.
The period when she went, I'm sorry.
When she came back.
Oh yeah, I mean, seeing her like that, it was so scary. I mean, I was glad she was still alive. But for a very active person to lose all control and ability in one arm was so limiting for her. And I think for us, I mean, I was happy she was alive. The hard part was the part to come of her adapting to not being able to do things with two hands, and the struggles of that. And
But she did rally. She was able to drive.
she did. She played cards and stuff. She never complained. I mean, she wasn't happy about her situation, but she wasn't a person who um, complained, why me, why did this happen, or anything like that. She just kind of dealt with it. It's just hard to understand why it happened at such a young age. Um, but she rallied. The heart attack is what really was unbelievable. Because that was sudden. She was fine. She was at home. She wasn't sick and in the hospital. So she was, spoke to her the night before. It was December 1st that she passed away. And, it was Christmassy time of year. It was after Thanksgiving. And, it's a busy time of year. So sometimes I didn't talk to my parents every day. I'd talk to them maybe 2 or 3 times a week or twice. Never have gone a week without speaking with them. But ironically, the morning she died, the following day, I was supposed to be having a party for my daughter's birthday, and Lee and I were up all night. We decided the activity was going to be all the kids were going to make their own gingerbread house. So we had been up till 3 in the morning, and I actually had like over 70 slabs of gingerbread that we were up rolling and baking and putting out. And that was the night we got the call. And I had called her actually because I often called my mother to tell her I'm making this recipe or I'm making that recipe, and I would ask her like, how do you make this, or what's the other ingredients? All of I have a ton of recipes of hers, and all of them are chicken scratch because it was when I like on scrap paper, because I would call her randomly while I was doing something and quickly get the recipe. And I called her to tell her that she'd be so proud that I had baked all this stuff and we were up doing this and how fun it's going to be, and that kind of thing. And it was weird because I think everybody had happened to speak to her that night, which isn't always the case. I think Nick had called her for something, Ninette had called. So we did have the good fortune of everybody speaking to her right before, but just a few days before was Rocco's birthday party. And I think that was only 2 or 3 days before she had passed away. So everybody was together at Rocco's birthday party, and she was there. So we did get to see her. But, I mean, we often saw each other coming and going, but we were there for a good celebration together. And I remember on the way home, we were on Vets Highway, and we ended up in the car next to my parents, and we unrolled the window to show the kids. They were little. Look at Mom and Pop over there. My mother's in there. She unrolls her window and she's sticking her tongue out at the kids, and they're cracking up, laughing at their silly grandma, sticking her tongue out and stuff like that. And that was the last time we saw her. So.
And how did you find out that she had died?
I had gotten the call. We got the call at like 5 in the morning from Jackie, Dominic's wife, and she had told us. I guess my father called Dominic after the ambulance, and he went right over there, and Jackie had called me to tell me what was going on, and so I woke up Lee to tell him, and flew out of the house and ended up, and they weren't sure where she was going to be. By the time we got there, they weren't sure if what hospital they were taking her to. So I ended up bumping into my sister Jackie at my father's house, and I presumed she was going to that closest hospital. So we just randomly drove over there, and that is where she was brought. So we all met up together that night at that hospital, and she ended up passing away in the morning. Oh, the funeral was, all of that was a blur. It's kind of a blur to me, but I can tell you, they had to open up her wake. They had to open up like 3 rooms easily to accommodate all the people, because my mother had so many friends, and my father had all his friends from the medical community, and then each one of us kids as adults had friends, and my friends grew up with my mother. They ate dinner, slept over in the house, so mobs and mobs of people. And it was funny because that's what people would comment on when they came. I mean, obviously it was a very sad atmosphere, but I remember my brother-in-law laughing because there were flowers. My mother was so friendly. She chatted up with everybody, and there were flowers from the butcher, the baker, the dry cleaner, the beautician. Everybody loved it. She was a very thoughtful person at the holiday times. She would buy gifts for everybody in the beauty parlor, not just the woman who cut her hair. She actually, I remember going to a podiatrist that she had used, and he told me about this beautiful crystal, I think a Lennox dish she had gifted him for Christmas. And he told me that was the nicest gift any patient has ever given me in my entire life. People loved her. She loved them. They loved her, and they came and showed up. And so that was a joke with my in-laws, is that my mother was loved so much that there was flowers from like the butcher, the cleaner, all these people. But she did. She was a very involved person, a very well liked, and it was, boy, it showed. It showed.
How did your kids take it?
Well, they were all young. Let's see, Marissa was 5, and I was 5 when I lost Grandma Marino. Marissa was 5. They were devastated. They would see see me cry all the time. So they would cry all the time, and they always associated every sad event with my mother. Anytime we could be watching a sad movie, and it would bring up memories of my mother and stuff like that. And but we kept her memory alive, tell a lot of stories about her, and they would remember that. They still do. They value a lot of pictures of her holding them and stuff like that. They have them hanging in their bedrooms, but they miss her. It was the morning after my mom had passed away, and my husband and I were in bed, and Marissa had come into bed with us, and we're laying in the bed, and we have a big atrium window, like a big arched window in the bedroom. And while we're laying there, she's looking out the window, and all of a sudden she picks her head up and she said, "I think I just saw Moore go up to heaven." That was probably one of the most crushing yet beautiful things I could have heard her say. That coming from a 5-year-old about her grandmother. And Elena was in a dance at the time, and they played her dance routine was The Fox and the Hound, and they play this one song that it's the scene where the woman has to let the dogs go, and they bring them to the woods to let the animals go away. And my kids always associated that as a very sad part of having to get rid of their pets. And Elena was in the dance class, and she would run out crying in the middle of this routine every time. And she would just say, "I'm so sad about Moore. I'm so sad about Moore." And I realized what the song was, and it was this sad part of The Fox and the Hound. And it just brought up such sad memories that she just associated it with my mom. And I remember the dance teacher coming out to me and saying, "She is the whole reason why I can even teach this class. She is the best listener. We love her. Please don't quit. Please don't quit." And they were willing to change the whole dance recital song just for Elena. And she just couldn't do it. She was just she already made the association of the sadness with dance now that she ended up quitting full anyway. But for years, any sad songs would remind her of my mom. But she was only 2. She was only 2 at the time. So I don't know what her memories are now, except for stories. But they love to hear stories. I would tell her how Elena is a very clingy kid, and she would. A lot of times we'd go to parties or events, and she'd always have to have me 2 feet behind her. If I separated by an extra foot, she'd freak out. And when we were at Rocco's party, the very last time we all saw my mother, it was a dark room. There was a disco ball. Kids are running around, chaotic. She was clinging to me on my lap, And my parents came through the door, and at the time, my mom had taken a fall and was in a wheelchair because she had hurt her good leg. So she had her partially paralyzed leg, and her good leg was injured, so she was in the wheelchair. And as soon as she walked in, Elena jumped off my lap and ran right across the whole dance floor and into my mom's lap. And it was just amazing because that was the only other person she would, ditch me for. The only person. So something you never get over.